Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Hey, if you wanted to ask me any questions about Knowledge for Men or any challenges you currently have and want me to help you break through, then check out my live weekly talks at kfmlive.com, where I share my biggest lessons learned about being the most powerful version of yourself and interact with the Knowledge for Men community live. To attend the next live event, go to kfmlive.com. Again, that's kfmlive.com. Hope to see you there and have a conversation with you. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Triambika Vive. She's an internationally recognized seminar leader, professional sex and conscious intimacy coach, and founder of the Ecstatic Awareness Institute. Triambika, happy to have you here on the show.
Thank you, Andrew. Great to be here.
All right, Triambika, let's dive in now with a favorite success quote or something that you've been living by, something that's helped you on your journey, and what that means to you also.
Great. Well, this quote is by Joshua J. Marine, and it's challenges are what make life interesting, and overcoming them is what makes life meaningful.
Okay. And so how does this relate with your story here?
I think it relates with my story because I think we've all faced challenges. And for me, the challenges that I've faced have really converted into making my life what it is and bringing the information and insight that I bring to my clients. It's what's created my whole life. And definitely my challenges have given my life meaning in a deep way.
Yeah. It's interesting because we often are thinking of our challenges as this bad thing, like why me? We're living in some sort of victim mindset, when in fact these challenges are what make life interesting. Is what I'm getting from your quote.
It makes life interesting, and then overcoming them is what makes life meaningful. And that piece right there is where we can really draw on sort of a more soulful or spiritually connected way of approaching our challenges.
Okay, so then could we say that if what happens if we have challenges, we have problems in our lives, and we're living in resistance. We're living in that gray area where we are not yet overcoming the challenge. We're actually living with the challenge. We're not taking action towards accomplishing the goals. So then is life less meaningful if we are in that gray area?
I wouldn't say it's less meaningful. I think it's an interesting time in life, right? When we're in that gray area. And I think it's in that search, right? Even if you don't have it all figured out, which most of us don't, it's in that inner searching and that inner exploration that we bring the meaning and saying, hey, what is going on? Why do I have just this challenge? And how can I get to the other side of it? Who can I seek out that can support me with it? And, figuring out what's really driving those challenges in your life.
And so what if they're not doing that? They're not even searching. They're just living with the challenge.
I would recommend to go and do some work on it.
Yeah. But what I'm getting to is I think a lot of people are in that area where they've accepted the challenge and not accepted it like, oh, I'm going to go and pursue this challenge, but they've just accepted that, hey, you know what? I'm just overweight. That's just who I am. You know what? I am just an alcoholic. That's just who I am. I'm just going to live with it. Or I'm always broke in my life. I'm just going to live with that. Or I have horrible relationships. You know what? That's just me. And they actually aren't they have no plans of ever overcoming that. And I feel like a lot of people have just accepted the challenge instead of actually trying to overcome the challenge.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. I think that when I look at it from the standpoint of my tradition and what I subscribe to, I would say, if it's working for you, then actual acceptance of something is a very high road to take. But we really want to look at, is this really working for you? Is this causing you to feel alive and connected? And is it allowing you, is this challenge, even though you have to live with it, does it allow you to be who you want to be in the world. And if you feel depleted by it and you feel constantly broken down by your challenge, then definitely it's not helping you. So, it's time to really look at how to overcome it. But I've got challenges in my life that I simply can't do anything about, things connected to my family that, it is what it is. And so accepting it is the high road.
Yeah. Yeah. This is really adding some good insight, I think, for all of us listening here. So now, how does this tantric type of, how do you get into that? Okay, I'm interested in, how does one become a tantric expert? What's that story? What's that journey look like?
Well, I can only tell you my own journey.
Yeah. Go ahead. What's that look like?
Well, I'm a once upon a time Catholic girl who was always extremely curious about sexuality. And of course, no one was talking to me about sex, so I became even more curious. And what I couldn't understand at a young age was why sex was made to seem so unholy. And as I got into my teens and became sexually active, I wondered how something that felt this good, that could make me feel this alive, how could it possibly be wrong, right? Because that was the indoctrination that I was brought up with, that it was wrong, that it was bad, that I needed to wait, and that it couldn't be good. So those indoctrinated whispers didn't escape me as I continued in my life, and the conditioning just pulled at me, leaving me feeling really confused and feeling very misunderstood. Because I saw myself as a young person, I saw myself as a spiritual being, and yet I liked and wanted to have sex, and I wanted to know, if there was a connection, but at that stage in my life, those two words, spirituality and sexuality, had no place in the same sentence.
Right. Yeah. It's like very taboo. This is wrong. And, okay. So continue on.
So from that very disjointed place, I could never access the deep connection that I craved with men. And I found that men were equally disconnected from me.
Yeah.
And there was definitely something was missing. So by the time I hit my 20s, all I knew is that I felt really bad about myself, and I felt really bad about the poor quality interactions that I'd had with men.
What is a poor quality interaction with men? Are you talking about conversation? Are you talking about being intimate? Are you talking about sex?
It's sex and intimacy. Yeah. Just, where you're with someone intimately, sexually, and there's not a connection. You don't feel that depth, that realness. One of you or both of you is putting up some kind of front that maybe there is non-consensual touch happening. Maybe I didn't have boundaries at the time, as many women don't, and men too. And so all of these things lead you to feeling really disjointed, with who you are as a sexual being, and wondering, how do I possibly move past this? Which is what I decided, about 20 years ago, I decided to go willingly into the shadows of my sexual shame, of the sexual shame I had inherited, to try to find some answers. So I was engaged in different Eastern philosophies at the time, and yoga and Buddhism and things like that. And that brought me to India, which is where I first began learning about Tantra.
Yeah. And what was your journey like in India?
Well, I was really seeking to find inner freedom. And I got that there was a place in me that was really seeking to find a meaningful connection through my sexuality. So it was there that I really realized that part of me was broken, and that this was true for men too. And collectively, we were broken in this area of our sexuality. So I continued on my path of healing as I saw it, as learning and growing and healing are all connected for me. And I began to work with a tantric sexual healer in California that helped me to release the years of shame and regret and wounding that I had previously experienced. And I saw something else there, something truly beautiful. I saw that undoubtedly the path to our freedom lie within our sacred connection to our sexuality.
Wow. And so what does that process look like? Working with a tantric healer to release shame and the wounding and that questioning that you had around sex and spirituality, if that could coexist together?
The process is depending, of course, on who you work with. And I mean, there's a lot of ways to work with these.
What was your process? What did that look like? Is this activities? Is this questioning? Are you journaling? What does this look like?
Yeah, great. So apart from a lot of training that I received, classes and courses and things like that, the healing modality that was used with me at that time was a hands-on approach. So imagine a bodywork session, but you're working together with the body and the sexual organs. And it's not really about arousal or trying to get to some kind of orgasm, although if that happens, that's great, but that's not really what it's about. It's much more about being touched with a level of presence and depth that is unlike anything else that I had ever experienced in my sexual connections. This was more about channeling energy to heal my sexual organs, and my heart. And so that energy of combining the heart, the spirit, and sexuality is part of that process that allowed for the healing to take place.
Mm. And so what were the results that happened in your life? What happened after this whole journey here?
So after that journey, I began to train and to really serve people in this way, in whatever way I could. I mean, it was like I brought back from this darkness that I had inside of me all kinds of wisdom and all kinds of awareness. And this is where I really felt called. I said, this is what the world needs. This is what we need, right, to move ahead in life. So I began to teach and coach and guide. And it took a lot of years of trial and error to sort of find my way and how exactly I wanted to bring this to the world. But that's where my journey began.
Yeah. And what were the results in your sexual life or your intimacy? Like what happened? What was the past? And then what was it like after?
Okay. My personal life. Yeah. So
let's go in. Yeah, here we go.
This is important because that first year, I'd say first year or two, where I was receiving regular sexual healing sessions, and it was painful. It was painful.
Is this physical or is this verbal?
Physical pain, emotional pain. It felt like it was a burning inside of me. Being touched felt like a burning sensation, and I would just cry and cry and cry. And so I had a lot to release, obviously. And then I don't remember exactly the moment it happened, but one day I realized that the burning and the pain had stopped. And I instead was experiencing a very expanded orgasmic response in my body that was bigger than me. It was bigger than my physical body. It was connecting me to source. It was connecting me to something much bigger than me. And I felt like such divine alignment in my body and in my sexual experience that it was like I was blossoming in the most beautiful ways. It's hard to even describe how much blossoming happened. And that's, I think, where I started to take off and develop this work in the world.
And so now that you've gone on this journey, you've grown, you have released the shame, the wounding, and you are very comfortable in your own sexuality. Now, let's talk about men. Are you able to find a man who can meet you with this level of sexual freedom?
Oh, yes.
And so...
Yes, I have a man.
Okay. So, but did you have a man before, like during this whole process, or you met this man after this process?
While I was engaging in this process in the early years, I did have a partner. We were engaged, and he was walking this path with me, and it was really beautiful to have him alongside of me. We didn't last. We ended the relationship, and from there, there was a period where I was too intense, where it was like the men that I was meeting couldn't meet me where I was at. So I definitely had years.
What was that like when you're meeting a man who could not meet you? What do you mean by that? Like at an intimate level, and then also at a sexual level? What is that like for you as a woman?
I felt like I was too much. Like I was too much and too intense. And I felt alone, very alone, and misunderstood. Now I was misunderstood in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. Then this next chapter begins here. So what were some of the things you were often hearing from men?
You're really intense. I'm intimidated by you. those were the two big ones.
So did you tone it down, or did you just keep going and you're like, I'm going to find a guy who can meet me?
No, I didn't tone it down. What I did, I kept going. And what I did was I found my tribe.
That's good.
I found the people that were aligned with these energies, that had been doing this work in their own life, and that wanted a woman that had the awareness that I had. So that's what shifted there. But I also found at that time is that I changed in my perspective of men, because I realized that it wasn't so much that I had to tone it down, but I needed to honor who they were more.
What did you need to honor more? What exactly with men? What was it?
It was an appreciation of men. Needed to gain a new appreciation of who men were and how they were showing up and what they needed. And that's where things began to change even more, because the path of Tantra is, there's a masculine and feminine dynamic in everything.
Yeah.
And so I was very high on my horse of, the feminine,
right? But
probably not paying as much attention to the masculine and what the masculine really needs, both in myself and also in the men around me.
So where do you feel like men are holding back at an intimate level?
I think that there's places where men have been conditioned to believe that intimacy is weak, or that there's this way in which, what I've seen, and I know this isn't for all men, but I think that some men get the conditioning that women want you to be strong. They want you to be their hero, and that showing too much softness or tenderness or intimacy is going to make them weaker.
Yeah. Where do we find that balance, that good balance, that healthy balance of the blend of the masculine and the feminine within a man?
Oh my goodness. Great question. The balance, first of all, okay, there's so many things I could say about this. First of all, the balance, I think, within any human being comes with, first of all, recognizing that the masculine and the feminine live in an eternal bond and marriage within ourselves, right? Inside of every man, there is both. And who the feminine is in him is not effeminate, but the power of the feminine within his own being is his emotional body, right? It's the part of him that can connect to feeling, and to actually knowing that feelings and emotions are actually part of life, and that you are stronger because of it, that there's power in being able to be expressed, right? To be able to say, what you feel and to ask for help. And I know how difficult that is for men.
What would be some, let's say, just thinking of a man's like, okay, that was really good. Now, how do I do that? What are some daily habits that would make a man more successful at being more intimate with a woman?
Well, okay. So one of the things that I feel is important, and just see this first as perhaps a metaphor, and then see where it can begin to get integrated in the body, right?
Okay.
So there's this way where men are connected to their penis, they're connected to their arousal, and they have a very, intimate relationship with that for the most part. Many men do. And so a lot of times that's where the sexuality lives. It lives down there. Now, when you can get that sex and your heart are actually in a very, very intimate connection themselves, right? That really your heart is like a chalice, like an alchemical chalice, right? Where we can transform that sexual energy from being at that really base level, which is nothing wrong with that primal level sexuality. I love it and it's great. And at the level that it can really serve a woman is when you breathe that sexual energy up and through you and into your heart and let it connect with a woman where that merging has happened, where you're connecting with your heart and your sex. You're not leaving any part of that outside of you.
And what would you say are some of the most common mistakes that men have with this, like do's and don'ts around really opening up into this?
Common mistakes that men have with this particular thing, I just think it's mostly around not knowing, right? Just not knowing that their heart can be a part of this in a really connected, conscious way. You don't have to be in love with a woman, but you can be present with her, right? You can be available to who she is as a goddess, if you will. And I think that where it kind of goes into do's and don'ts, I'd say get present, right? Learn how to be present. Learn to tap into this now, this moment, and really be with a woman. Don't over share something that you're experiencing. Instead, actually feel it, be with it, be present with it, right? Share it through your eyes and through your breath. And how a woman can experience you more deeply doesn't always have to be with words. So that's the good news.
Yeah. As we know, communication is mostly done with the body language.
Absolutely.
So do you feel like guys are living in their heads too much?
I think a lot of men are. A lot of us are. Yeah, definitely.
How does that prevent a deeper level of connection if a man is living in his head? Very logical.
Yeah, I think it depends a little bit on what his mental process is. A lot of the men that I work with fill themselves with doubt and have concerns about confidence, about their ability to be a good lover, or, they have a lot of questioning and doubt going on in their mind, or fear. So all of those types of thoughts really can cut any intimate experience short. Yeah, I forgot the question.
Like, how is living in your head and being very logical, how does that prevent or negate from a deeper level of intimate connection?
Well, so when I think of logic, it's in my head and not in my body. And so the body, I believe, has immense amounts of wisdom. The body, the emotional body, our bodies have so much wisdom. And so when you go into logic and you go into your head, first of all, you're probably not being present, as I mentioned before. And second, you're not able to tap into that deep wisdom of really getting a sense of when a woman is showing you what she wants, she's often not doing it with words. You're not able to pick up on subtle body language cues, right? If you're stuck in logic, you're overthinking what the process is and what the next move is going to be, as opposed to getting a sense of the subtlety, the beautiful subtlety that's available to you at every moment when you're with a woman. Yeah. And there's a lot of intimacy in that, and just like paying attention at that level.
Yeah. So this is at an intimate level now. Like, how can men be better lovers in bed?
That's a big question.
Very big question.
Very big.
I'll leave that with you. What do you do with it? How are you going to play with that?
Okay. Well, so first thing I would say is slow down. Slow down. This is something, the number one thing that I tell every man I work with when it comes to sex. And I understand that the desire to rush things is there because truth is, the longer the process of sex lasts, the more likely things are to surface within ourselves that might feel uncomfortable. In other words, deep intimacy, right? And so slowing down, it's like you can you might feel some discomfort, but like keep it slow, keep it steady. I'm talking about the actions that happen before sex and also during sex.
So foreplay.
Foreplay. And also I think of foreplay as not only like the couple of things that you do to sort of get somebody excited right before you have sex. I think of foreplay as an ongoing experience that can happen through the day or through the week, right? That's like a buildup of something is going to happen in the near future. And it's really exciting to think about. But the slowing down your pace and slowing down your movement is so valuable because, first of all, there's that way in which you can really feel a person, right? You can feel them breathing. You can feel them responding. And there's a lovingness that's there. And that's a lot of times what's missing, right? In that fast-paced sex. And that's nothing wrong with quickening the sex at some stage during the act, but start off slower, right? Don't go to her genitals right away. Don't touch her there yet, right? Like really tease and let her anticipate that touch that she's waiting for, right? Right between her legs, that touch it's going to happen, but tease her, let her anticipate it. That's the key to being a really great lover. One of the keys.
Yeah. All right, so do you feel like men are too quick? Like they just want to get straight to it and an orgasm and then be done. It's like we want to fix things. It's like we want to get this done. It's like, all right, let's get this done. Let's take care of this.
I think a lot of men would like to last longer in bed. So there's that. But I think when it comes to working on arousing a woman, yeah, a lot of men are too quick. They go straight for her genitals without a lot of warm up. And, when you really see a woman in her full arousal, and she doesn't even need to be touched there yet, right? And her full arousal, like you touching her there is going to be like instant orgasm, instantly orgasmic responding. It makes such a huge difference when you have a woman that's really turned on and wanting and ready for that touch right in her genitals, where most men just go directly to. So it kind of kills it.
Yeah. It kills the big anticipation. It kills that, just that excitement for what they know is to come.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
What else? So slow down. I think that's just such a big thing too. I do like how you said it's not even just about the foreplay or what you do before sex, but even throughout the day or potentially the week.
Right. And, this is obviously in this day and age, we do a lot of texting or sexting. if your
or
partner,
Snapchat, there's just too many ways to do this now.
Yeah, I can't keep up, but whatever your partner is comfortable with is helpful. But also the glance and the, glancing at your partner throughout the day and holding her tight and squeezing her and, grabbing her from behind and like all these ways where, you're engaging sexual energy without necessarily needing to do something about it. One of the complaints I hear from women is that they're afraid to kiss their partner because the partner thinks that that's immediately going to lead to sex.
Yes. Okay.
This is a big one, right? And so both men and women love to kiss, right? And kissing, what's really great is that kissing, as the saliva gets produced in the mouth, actually produces testosterone in both men and women. So it starts to open up that sexual response. But what if you don't give into it right there and then? And you just leave it sort of hanging for the next couple of hours, right? Let that delicious kiss just sort of linger on her palate for a while. That's going to develop into a craving. And so she can also trust that you're not going to just take her to bed right away, that you're going to sort of have it build. And it's really sexy when that happens.
Kind of really adding to that sexual tension. Like if it's a valve, it's like just kind of slowly expanding before the actual event.
Yes, I love that. Slowly expanding the valve.
Okay, so now coming back to the actual sex, other than slowing down, what is something else, maybe something guys do wrong or something else they could be doing to really add to that whole experience?
Okay, great. Well, so breathing. And it's much like the previous point of slowing down, but beginning to notice your breath throughout your sexual process. It's like usually most people are either panting, having a very short, shallow breath, or they're not breathing at all. It's like, they're holding their breath. And there's a good reason for that, right? If you're moving quickly, your body's adapting and you begin panting, but also holding the breath or keeping it short and shallow. The good reason that happens is that it keeps the sensation of arousal localized in the genitals. However, when you learn to expand and extend your breath, guys, so that you are actually feeling that sensation of arousal down in your genitals and taking a nice, slow, deep, full breath, so that then that arousal that actually, rather than it staying localized, then begins to expand inside of your body, right? It can channel or redirect itself. Now you're allowing sexual energy to move through you in a much bigger, more expansive way. This is going to help you slow down your actual arousal response. So you will be able to slow down your ejaculation if that's of any interest to you. And it's also going to support you in staying present with your lover during sex.
So what I'm getting from all this is really slowing down, being present, and really raising your awareness around the act of sex and not skipping the important elements of foreplay and what happens before, so that you can have this really exciting, I'm almost thinking like a slow buildup that leads to a real explosion, as an analogy and just what happens. And it creates a more fulfilling sex life.
Yes. And I love how you said raising awareness, raising your ecstatic awareness.
Right. Okay. I didn't see that. Yeah.
It really is about that. It's just about having more awareness. Which brings me to one more point I'd love to add to this, if that's okay.
Okay.
So speaking of foreplay, Like many of us relate to foreplay, like I said before, is that thing that you do sort of to get the genitals ready to have sex. And think of foreplay more as a beautiful journey, right? And if you're committed to slowing down and breathing, think about touching your partner, like really touching her, not just in her genitals, not just on her nipples, but like her whole body, right? Pulling her hair a little bit and caressing her face while you look in her eyes, and take the back of your hand. And I say the back of your hand because that kind of allows you to really caress lightly. Take the back of your hand and caress her whole body up and down, right on the inside of her thighs, and let that like slow caressing touch build into something that's a little bit more, a little stronger, or maybe some scratching or biting. Like play with different modalities of touch so that you don't get stuck in the same rut. And I think that's one of the biggest things that happens, especially in long-term relationships, is that you get stuck in a rut of how you think sex is supposed to be between the two of you. Change it up and try more touch.
Yeah, I like that. I like how we often think of like the main prize is the breasts or the buttocks or the glutes and the whole pelvic area, but there's just so much more to it is what I'm getting. That really goes in with the whole process of slowing down and kind of building up to, it's almost like a volume knob, just slowly turning up that volume knob to where it's on, full blast. And then it's some fun. It builds up there. Versus instead of being like a light switch where it's just like, all right, let's do it. And then boom, it's just the lights on, and it could kill that. Well, okay, this is really good. And I think so many guys, especially if they're already in an existing relationship, are excited to really apply these principles potentially tonight. And for those that are single, are very just much more aware of how to have, really be a great lover and build up to having great sex and just being comfortable with your own intimate and sex life. I'm curious. I want to talk about porn. How can porn, and specifically, I'm not talking about someone who watches porn like once a month, where it's just very seldom, but someone who's watching porn more frequently, which I believe is a large percentage of men. It's not a rare thing for a guy to be watching porn regularly, such as every other day or even every day. How is this going to affect his intimate life? How is this going to affect his sex life?
Oh my goodness. Well, there's a lot of research done on this subject, and the whole topic of porn is getting bigger and bigger because it obviously and younger men are watching porn because they have access to it, unlike older men who didn't have access to the internet. And so there's a few ways where intimacy and porn become an issue. I mean, I don't have anything against porn in general, like if it's once in a while and you're enjoying the visual, I get it. But it is that situation where if you're using porn on a regular basis, I'm talking about like say once a day or even more, and maybe a few times a week, but that's your main connection to sex is those visuals. What happens is that you're going into kind of the fantasy mindset. There's a good place for fantasy and sex. However, it is very different from the reality of what a real woman needs and desires, right?
Yeah.
So that depth of connection, that realness, that slowness, the lovingness, what a woman needs to really feel opened and to want to open to you. What you learn from porn is like the opposite.
Yeah. Sometimes they're like already 10 minutes into sex. Like they're already going at it. Like when the scene starts, it's like, all right, here we go.
Right.
There's no buildup in most cases. And it's typically all about the man.
It's typically about the man. Exactly. And that
all about the man's pleasure is what I meant.
Right.
But focusing on the woman.
It's the cum shot. It's the, it's like, that's what makes the money, right? I agree. It's typically about the man. And so that's one of the areas where, when you're with a real woman in real life, first of all, her sexual response doesn't move anywhere near as quick as that. And second, I mean, if you want to be in a relationship, if you want to be in a happy relationship, your commitment to having her pleasure be a priority is going to be really important, right? Because her joyfulness and her expansion in her sexuality is what contributes to the loving feelings in the relationship.
That's just a big takeaway right there. Like, is her pleasure even a priority? Like, first, even asking yourself that question, I think for a lot of guys, they might not have thought of that. Like, wow, am I even considering is this about me or is this about her or is this about both of us?
Exactly.
That's a good question. Am I even making this a priority to pleasure her? And you're saying that it's extremely important for that to be in there equally.
Yeah, I believe it is. It's extremely important, especially for if you want to cultivate loving, joyful feelings in your relationship long term.
Yeah,
that's going to be essential. Yes,
absolutely. Okay, and yeah, did I interrupt you? Were you going to continue going there with the whole porn?
Well, that fantasy piece, I mean, I think I pretty much said it, right? It's that place where it's not real life and you're not learning real experiences about sex. You're not learning anything quality about sex from watching porn. I get that it's a wonderful visual thing. Men are very visual and they need to. Yeah.
And 3D porn is coming out. It's gotten to a point where it is really good. Like the girl, you can get anything you want. The girl next door, you could have, it's not just like these, it's really attractive woman is what I'm saying. Like, whereas in the past, it may have just been, more mediocre style women, I guess, if that's how you want to call it. But it's just too good. And it's gotten to a point where it's in some cases just dangerous I believe if you're doing it excessively, such as every day. And if you feel like your sex life is lacking, such as the things we're talking about here, so much of what Trambika is sharing with us today, I think porn can really hold a man back in his levels of intimacy.
I've known men that have had very strong porn addictions and basically ruined their social life, right? They were single. They're not getting out of the house. They're not leaving. This is all they really want to do, just like many addictions do, right? They take over your life. And so when it came to relating to real women or having real lovers, it was boring. It was dulling. It was, it was deadening. It was like, it doesn't even feel the same. And that's another thing is that with the type of manual stroking that you do when you're watching multiple images like that, there's no vagina that could simulate that, right? There's no vagina in the world that could feel the same way with the same intensity that your hand does. And so when you get too accustomed to that, it's going to be hard for many men who have a very strong porn addiction to be able to even ejaculate ever at all. Like that's one of the responses that happens is it's very
maintaining that erection as well.
And the erection, I haven't even gone there yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a list of things.
Yeah, but and I think because there's so much of this information being put out there in the world right now. I think to speak to the men who are listening, who feel that they are soulful, right? That they desire to be conscious and they desire to be connected. Just knowing that if you're watching porn, just turn it off and leave it alone for several days before you go to be with a woman, so that you can sort of recondition yourself back to real women and real needs.
I'm glad that we touched on that topic. I feel like it's such a relevant topic for being intimate and having a healthy sex life, is addressing the fact that if one is watching frequent porn use, that it can seriously hold a man back. And I think on the counter, on the other side, women, I mean, I'd like to hear your experience. From what I have heard from other women is sometimes they don't know that the man is watching porn. And so because the man can't ejaculate and or maintain or have a healthy erection, then the woman feels like it's her, such as like, I'm not enough for this man here. And they start to feel like it's their fault, like they're not enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, that is true. A lot of women do go through those feelings, and that's part of their own work to do on themselves, because I'd say 8 out of 10 times it's not true. And I say 8 out of 10 because I do know relationships where the woman has really let herself go, and maybe she's been really insecure the last several years and it's not very attractive to the man. So, occasionally a woman does have a part to play in why he's not responsive to her. But if it is because of porn, it's a shame that women do have that low sense of self and feel that it is because of them. But it does happen.
Yeah. Really good here, Trambika. This has been a powerful session here. Let's dive into the knowledge round. Just going to ask you a few more questions, more just to get more knowledge and nuggets of wisdom out of you here. So let's dive in. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
If you're tired of living the mundane day-to-day and just the daily grind and want to experience more joy and fulfillment in your life, then check out my live weekly talks and open Q&A with the community where I share my biggest insights on becoming the most powerful version of yourself to rise above mediocrity and create the life you desire. Register for the next upcoming event at kfmlive.com. Again, that's kfmlive.com. And hurry up before all the spots are taken. Hope to see you there. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime.
All right, so all that happens in post. And the first question I have for you here, Trimbika, is what advice would you give to someone who's feeling really lost or unsure of their purpose, what they should be doing?
I'd say own your desire. Really own your desire and don't be afraid of it. And also don't let it leak out unconsciously. And so what I mean by that is, we are talking about sexuality and desire is, of course, at the pinnacle of it all. If you're feeling kind of lost, what happens is a lot of guys will not bring their true desire, their authentic desire to a woman, right? Because they don't want to have her feel uncomfortable or, there's that side of it. Or the other side of it is that they bring all of it and it comes out really unconsciously and they're disconnected from it. And women do end up feeling uncomfortable. And so I really advise to own it and own that you have desire, own that you are a sexual being and that you're a sexual man, and really learn, like I said earlier, to breathe it up, breathe that desire up, let your heart be filled with it and then beam it through your eyes, right? Be that safe man, but don't be so safe that you don't bring your desire because women want it. They do.
What is it like for a woman when you're with a man who has that sense of purpose and has a direction that he's going in and he's charging towards that?
Oh, it is the hottest thing ever. It is super sexy. And, this goes with life, a man who has a life purpose,
right? And
a man who is purposeful in his intention and being authentic with what he wants and letting her know it feels like, she can just drop into her feminine and relax and just, just be, in a sense, submit to his direction and flow.
What would you say was holding you back from becoming the woman you are now today?
I think the thing that was holding me back was I was trying to be the man.
So really stepping into that masculine.
Yeah, I was trying to be the man in my relationships and I didn't know it. And so having men step into their masculine and women step into their feminine and be really good with that, letting that be okay, that my feminine is not making me weaker or smaller. That was it right there.
And there is the balance though, right? Where you also have a masculine still and men still have that feminine, right?
Absolutely. I exercise my masculine in the world every day, right? With what I do and putting things out there and, everything that I do, I need it. I wouldn't want to live without it. But in my relationship, to succeed in my relationship is finding that balance with us, when it's appropriate to bring my masculine and when, I just need to let him be a man. And allow that, right? And celebrate that. And also for him, right? For my partner, for men in the world, to know when it's okay to soften, that it's okay to let your guard down and talk about what you're feeling, talk about what's really going on, share your heart, because women are constantly at a loss for knowing what the hell is going on in his mind. He's not talking to me. So bring the wisdom of your own feminine through you.
Yeah. Okay. And so this is a good one here. What would you say are 2 or even 3 of your most influential books that have really helped you in this space?
Wow. Okay. Books. I would say that The Art of Conscious Loving by Charles Muir is one of them. There's a lot of what has served me has come through courses and coaches and teachers. So books are great. I probably have at least 1 or 2 more that I can think of, but I also just want to emphasize that there are so many amazing courses and teachers and people that can guide you. And there's nothing like that direct experience. But the other book that I also like a lot, the books that are all written by Margot Anand, right? There's, I'm so sorry, I'm forgetting the name right now, but Margot Anand is an amazing author. And I recommend, she's got 4 books out and I recommend all of them.
All right, great. I just added the Art of Conscious Loving to my wish list here. I'll be checking that out. That sounds great. And this is more of a scenario here for you, Triambika. What would you tell your 25-year-old self to do and not to do if you had 60 seconds with your 25-year-old self, knowing what you know now?
I would say stop worrying about your weight, stop worrying about your body, and get present with the men in your life and know that that's not what they're paying attention to. That's one thing. Looking back at the early years and the ways that I, suffered and held myself back. And I would also say, just keep moving and you're going in the right direction. Like, life and sex is healthy and it's life affirming. And, to really just trust my path is what I would say.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Would you say this is your philosophy on life too?
I would say my philosophy on life is, I believe wholeheartedly that our sexual wholeness is equivalent to our right to be free and our right to have peace in the world. And by wholeness, I mean it's an undivided or unbroken completeness or totality that leaves nothing wanting inside of ourselves. And so, because I know that our sexual desire is one of the most potent forces in human nature, I also know that some of the most violent cultures on the planet are simultaneously some of the most sexually repressed cultures on the planet.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I do believe that our sexual wholeness and moving towards that in whatever way we can is what's going to contribute to peace on the planet.
Wow. That's a really interesting point that you just made there. That's really good. That concludes the knowledge round. Wow, what a wealth of knowledge there, Triambika. What's exciting you now today? Like, what's getting you out of bed in the morning as we talk here?
Wow. Well, what's exciting me today and now is I'm just about to have a whole rebrand of my site. And so ecstaticawareness.com is there and it's going to be changing very soon. So I'm really excited to bring all of this knowledge specifically to men, right? To really bring everything that I have to serving men's awakening on the planet. And that's really why I'm here. And this is what I'm most excited about right now.
All right. Loving the work that you're doing. For all the listeners here, you can follow up with Triambika at ecstaticawareness.com. And you could also just Google her name, Triambika Vive, and it pops up on Google as well. And this has been just incredible. I'm so glad that we were able to get together finally and put this all out. And what a fantastic episode here. So do you have any other plugs that you'd like to leave for the audience? Social media or anything?
Yeah, well, Triambika Maviv is the whole name on my Facebook, of course, and all my other social media. And, I just invite people to come to my site and sign up to speak to me for a consultation where we can dive in and find out what's going on, what do you really need, and what do you really want to create for yourself and your sexual life. I'd love to support you.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the show here and sharing your story and your journey here with my community. And looking forward to getting you back on the show again.
Thank you, Andrew. It's been great.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and millions of downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement and we're just getting started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes because it really helps the podcast grow so we can impact even more men in the world who need this. Guys, this is all about living with purpose, where every day you only do things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. And always remember, love the life you have while creating the life of your dreams. Go to kfmfree.com to get a surprise bonus I've made for my listeners. Again, that's kfmfree.com for something that's changed my life, and I'm offering it to you for free. Also, check out my Amazon best-selling books that I've written for you to help you crush life at kfmauthor.com. Again, that's kfmauthor.com to see all the books I've created to help you break through in life. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, founder of KnowledgeForMen.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.